Good morning. I'm Patricia Chambers, the Director of the Empowerment Program for Families, helping families of Greater Baton Rouge. And Dr. Marilyn Thornton, she's our Executive Director for the entire Family Helping Families program. And on behalf of our director, I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning. Family Helping Families is a family-driven nonprofit resource center for individuals with disabilities and their families. And our mission is to provide individualized services, information, resources, and fully support them in living the best possible life they can live. And so we have the Bureau of Family Health is a part of Family Helping Families. Early Steps is the another component, the Empowerment Program, Inclusive Education, the Resource Center for Autism Spectrum Disorder, and through the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council, which is called LACAN. It's an advocacy network. Very, very important. And we want you to get some information on that today at the end of Ms. Boden's presentation. Across all of our service areas, we provide information and referrals. We provide education and training, and family-to-family and peer-to-peer support. Our empowerment program gives families in Louisiana mental health resources, behavioral health information, skills and resources to increase and to strengthen their ability to live successfully. We provide in-person workshops along with webinars like this one and parent, caregiver, professional monthly support groups. These are conference calls. And sometimes we also have travel stipends to offer financial support to families to attend workshops and conferences. The stipends cover transportation, hotels, and meals. So please continue to check our email and our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for upcoming events, workshops, and conference participation opportunities. Just a friendly reminder that our upcoming empowerment program, these events are as follows. These are Family Helping Families events. And the first one we want you to make note of is the Friends and Family Inclusive Luau. This is June 21st at Breck's Liberty Lagoon at 111 Lobdell Avenue, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then we have the free call-in support group. This is Parents, Caregivers Networking Meeting, Tuesday, June 18th at 5 p.m. And it's an opportunity for parents across Louisiana to share behavioral health resources in their area. The next event is the Art of Self-Care, and this is Friday, June 7th. This is at 11, and it's presented by Karen Stevens. And she is talking about how we are to take care of ourselves, how we're to remain healthy, so we can go the distance. Mental Health Community Resources, in-person training, June 12th at 5:30. And this will be presented by Miss Elizabeth Latino, and she's at Ascension Counseling Center. This is where it will take place. The address is 112 East Ascension Complex Boulevard. And this is in Gonzales, Louisiana. That's going to be awesome, as well as the self-care. So we want to get as much information as we can to do all that we can to live our best lives. When? Now. The last one is Understanding and Managing Medications. Again, it's a free webinar. This is Thursday, June 13th at 12 p.m. presented by Dr. Rosalind Thyssen from Trey Have a Heart Foundation. And we have Miss April Hampton. She's from LACAN, and it's an advocacy group. We go off to the legislature and advocate and support families relative to various bills that are being presented. And so we want to make sure that our families are getting what they need and what they deserve to support their families, families and children and individuals who have special needs. So Miss April has a few words today as well after this broadcast. And so let's welcome uh, today Miss Katrina. She is Executive Director of Superior Counseling Services, LLC. And then she's a telehealth provider. She's been doing that since 2018 in the Shreveport area, Ruston area, and Farmerville area. She has a lifetime teaching certificate. Uh, she, this is with the state of Louisiana and Department of Education. She's done a lot of work with elementary children, so you'll see her beautiful smile and you can imagine her manner with the children. But she is counseling and helping others, even beyond the children, the whole family, with her counseling services. She was at Grambling State University. She has a master's degree in elementary education. She's a reading specialist and has a bachelor's as well in elementary education. And speaking engagements and all, you have the information at the bottom of the flyer that's being posted. Her business number is area code 318-470-8182. And so she'll be happy to help you with anything that she can take care of with you. So during today's training, we'll discuss reducing antisocial behaviors. And again, it'll be presented by Miss Katrina Boden. After this, we'll hear a couple of things from Miss April Hampton LaCan. Very, very important to make sure that the people who serve us and the people we put in office, that they are inclusive in their decision making, approving of bills that are good for all families and good for all children. And so at this time, we want to welcome Ms. Katrina Boden. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Patricia. I am so happy to be on the call today, and thank you all for attending. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about what is antisocial behavior, antisocial versus social behavior, the types of antisocial behavior, the antisocial behavior examples, disorders related to antisocial behavior, impacts of antisocial behavior, proactivity or proactively reducing antisocial behavior, and treating the antisocial behavior. So we should learn a lot by the end of this presentation. I like to first off say that Miss Patricia did a wonderful job introducing me, but the most important thing is that I'm an educator by heart, which means that I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You're going to put that information in the chat. Miss Keisha is going to call those answers out to me when I ask you to drop something in the chat for me. Tell me this. What do you think about that? I want you to be actively involved in our webinar this morning. Two other things. Miss April is going to give you some feedback at the end of the presentation with some things that are upcoming with Families Helping Families. And then you all will also receive a survey at the end. And that survey is going to help us all. So we need you to fill it out. And you're going to tell me what I did great and what I did not so great, what you learned, what you already knew, and what your expectations are for the next webinar. So we're asking you that you stay on board as long as you can, and then make sure that you fill out that survey at the end of the presentation. So what is antisocial behavior? So we're getting started in the chat now. Let's go ahead on and test it out. Put in the chat, what do you think antisocial behavior is? And as you type that information in, Miss Keisha will read the chat and she'll let me know what you all are thinking. Keisha, do we have any responses so far?
No, ma'am, we don't have any responses. No,
What?
no, ma'am.
They have to get warmed up.
They have to get warmed up.
Yes.
Well, I'll go ahead on and start. They're like, we're not doing this morning. So when a person is described as being antisocial, they tend to be unwilling to interact with other people. The term itself was first used some time ago in the late 18th century to describe individuals who willingly remain withdrawn from society and were against social traditions and norms. Being antisocial is not the same thing as being shy. That's what we always have to remember. Since antisocial individuals do not want to associate with people in a friendly manner. For example, a shy individual may be more reserved in a party setting because they're afraid of interacting with people, whereas an antisocial individual would be against socializing with people altogether. They're just not interested. Antisocial behavior also includes behavior that is disruptive and hostile towards others. Oftentimes, these actions are characterized by intentional and voluntary aggression towards other people. Okay. So they're just not quiet, they're just not withdrawn, but they will have intentional aggression. Okay. Antisocial behavior can be a sign of antisocial personality disorder, which is a lifelong condition that can only be diagnosed in people age 18 or older. So you can take your children to go get diagnosed with this. They're not going to do it until after they're 18. And they have to have at least three behaviors that evident to their character. And that's part of their everyday personality and behavior. Those actions cannot be part of a manic or schizophrenia episode. Okay? So adults with ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder, often show signs of conduct disorder before the age of 15, such as aggression and destroying property. But there's no cure. Although there's no cure, we can still treat, right? We still treat it by managing the condition, which may include psychotherapy, medications, and other types of therapy that we'll talk about today.
Miss Katrina, I did get a response, and someone did have an answer. What is antisocial behaviors? And their
Mhm.
response is antisocial behavior is wanting to keep distance from others.
Okay, okay. He was reading my mind. So it's just not the idea of being shy, but not wanting to talk or deal with other people. So that hit the nail right on the head with that response. So we're talking about asocial behavior versus antisocial behavior. And I know some of you are probably thinking, why are we going through all of this? But we have to know where we're starting from with the definitions and how it looks and how it occurs before we can know what to do to treat it and manage it. Okay. So the term asocial is very distinct from being antisocial, asocial, right? This is because the prefix a means without, whereas anti means against. So asocial refers to individuals who are not particularly social, and antisocial describes individuals who are against socializing at all, okay? Who are against common societal customs. They want to go against those things. An asocial individual at a party would prefer to remain alone as opposed to socializing. Although they are against socializing because they don't feel like doing it at that time, doesn't mean that they just don't like to socialize at all. So what causes antisocial behavior? I'm gonna try it again. What do you all think causes antisocial behavior? Stick that in the chat and I'll be a little bit more patient this time for a response. And there's going to be several causes of antisocial behavior. So there's not going to be a wrong answer. So just throw me some answers out here.
Okay, I have isolation, environment, trauma, genetics, maybe genetics, trauma from childhood.
Okay, we have some people that are on point today. So you all are very correct. There's not just one specific cause for antisocial behavior. It could be influenced by genetics. Someone said that. Home environment. I heard that. It could also be a part of having a person with a mental illness as a parent or in a lack of discipline. And I know that's going to be a question mark. Like lack of discipline. So let's talk about growing up in a dysfunctional family. We're getting that slide to go forward. Okay, there we go. So growing up in a dysfunctional family often brings a big part of why some people develop antisocial behaviors. The dysfunction develops due to relationship patterns that uses fear or coercion to get things done. Children in this environment develop poor emotional regulation, impacting their thought processes. Kids can also learn these behaviors from schools or being exposed to it in the community. Also, trauma. Someone said trauma earlier. Trauma will also cause the antisocial behavior. Now, if you said genetics, put a check mark on your paper. Check genetics. The genetic factors, including environment, can also play a role. Maternal drug use and other trauma endured while in the womb can also lead to a higher likelihood of developing these behaviors. It's believed that some people are predisposed to antisocial behaviors due to the large impact of genetics on the structure of the brain. Now, we said having parents or a parent with mental illness may be a reason for antisocial behavior. Remember, not any of these are exact. Like, we can't say that this is the exact reason because all people are different. And so they respond to their environment and their family and to trauma in different ways. Okay. So if one or both parents have a history of antisocial behavior, there's a higher chance that the child will develop the antisocial behavior as well, because that's the environment that they're in, and some of this can be learned behavior. If parents have mental health issues, children have a higher risk of experiencing them as well. Parent drug, alcohol misuse, instability in the home, child abuse, and parental inconsistencies are additional risk factors, which brings us to the lack of discipline. As you see, all of this is going to combine into one big circle, right? Discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. Now, that was one definition that I found. It's right. But I have a definition of discipline. So, discipline, according to Katrina, quote unquote Katrina, is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using positive and negative consequences to correct disobedience and to reward obedience. Now, I hope some of you grabbed a hold of that, right? So, the difference in those two definitions is that my definition says that we're using positive and negative consequences for any behavior, and the positive and negative consequences tells us if we're correcting behavior or rewarding behavior. Okay. So we correct disobedience by with a negative consequence, and we reward great obedience with a positive consequence. So the lack of discipline is usually a characteristic of a dysfunctional family. So all of this kind of goes hand in hand. So what are the types of antisocial behavior? They can vary based on the type and the impact of behaviors on others. There are three classifications of antisocial behavior. All right. So the first one is personal antisocial behavior. This is when someone is directing negative attention and targeting a specific individual. Do you all want to put, no, not do you want to? I need you all to put some examples of personal antisocial behavior in the chat. This is when someone is directing negative attention and targeting a specific individual. This is an easy one, you all. I know the first person is going to put a word that starts with the B in there. Do we have any responses, Ms. Keisha?
Let's see here. I do want to say at the very beginning, it was two response that I didn't mention about what they thought antisocial is. And the first one was isolation, and the thinking is maladaptive. So that
Okay.
was another, yes, that was another response.
Okay.
So okay, so I have yelling,
Mm.
verbal abuse, bullying, when a child is destroying property, lying,
Mhm. Okay. Those are all great answers. So I like to make this
reflecting.
interactive, deflecting. Okay. Good, good. Okay. So the next type of antisocial behavior is nuisance. Okay. And this is when someone is directing negative attention and causing issues for a specific community, right? And some examples of this would be rowdy or nuisance neighbors, right? They don't have any boundaries. Maybe they're parking in the wrong parking spot all the time. They're making a lot of noise with their car. They pull up with playing loud music. They're intentionally doing things to cause issues for the community. Then you have those with animal problems. This covers any situation where animals are creating a nuisance or people's behavior associated with the use of the animals is deemed as antisocial. For instance, uncontrollable animals, letting your dogs walk away like a stray dog, continuously barking, intimidating people with their animals. This is a nuisance. Trespassing. People are using your yard, going through your yard as a shortcut, and they know they should use the sidewalk. Going through your garden if you have one. Entering on your land without permission can be an antisocial behavior, the nuisance one. And then there are also nuisance phone calls where people will call and just be silent, or they'll call and yell. So there's several ways that the antisocial behavior can be a nuisance to the community. The next one is the environmental antisocial behavior. This is when someone is harming a public place or creating negativity in a shared space. I know everybody thought of the G word, graffiti, as the first answer to as an example of this. So it includes graffiti, vandalism to vehicles or property, fly tipping, which is littering, and fly posting, which is posting advertisement signs or posters in unauthorized places, usually in a large sum, right? So you may cover the entire wall with just the same poster. This is antisocial behavior. Obstructing roadways, arson, begging. These are antisocial behaviors because they're environmental. So, our next slide talks about antisocial behavior examples, and they're common from time to time. However, if they're left unaddressed, these tendencies can develop into a larger mental health issue. In children, common antisocial behavior involves isolation, I heard that earlier, or bullying of others. But children under the 18 cannot receive a diagnosis until adulthood. We always have to remember that. So some antisocial behaviors in adults are aggression towards others. That's aggressively driving, yelling, intimidating, abuse towards others, physical, mental, sexual, emotional abuse, bullying or targeting specific individuals, harassing someone at home or at work, your boss, your coworkers, arson and intentional fire setting are antisocial behaviors in adults. Drug and alcohol use. So being dependent on the drug or alcohol and it's worsening, which makes your symptoms and the examples that we're using worse when we're under the influence, have a negative effect. And then another antisocial behavior in adults is racism or sexism, which constitutes hate towards people of different races and sexual identities, and displaying that verbally, outwardly, in public. So, additional antisocial behavior in adults would be indecent exposure, extreme road rage, threatening violence, destroying public property, criminal behaviors, and that's any type of crime, and it's usually repeated, and purposeful trespassing. So let's take a look at antisocial behavior in children. This is what we see, not 100% of the time, but we can see a lot of these. Aggression towards classmates, pushing, shoving, talking down or yelling at them, name calling, making fun of other children, bullying, having a sense of superiority, theft or criminal activity, stealing at the school, stealing the colors, stealing stuff from their classmates, setting fires, trespassing, going into stores stealing, breaking other children's belongings like their pencils and their toys. And they know that these toys are not theirs, but they are being antisocial because they're targeting other children and lying to teachers and parents. So they're usually making up situations and blaming others and hoping to get away with it with a false narrative that they're creating, that they are the only people knowing that what the actual answer is or the reality is. It can show up as vandalism, spraying walls or writing stuff on cars and buildings and in other public areas, skipping school, getting into fights, running away from home, and self harming behaviors like burning themselves, cutting themselves, pinching their skin, and inflicting other harm on their body. Now, when we talk about all these disorders and the antisocial disorder, right, then antisocial behavior can lead to a mental health disorder if not challenged, treated, and talked about, right? So antisocial behaviors are linked to specific mental health disorders, such as antisocial personality disorder, mood disorder, and other personality disorders. Children with a history of conduct disorder are also at a higher risk for developing antisocial personality or other personality disorders and mood disorders. That's why it's very important that when we start seeing any of those signs that we just mentioned, that we start using different strategies and techniques to help bring those children from that place to a place of having very good social demeanor. All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is the antisocial personality disorder. What is that? It's a personality disorder marked by impulsivity, harmful, and dangerous behaviors. Conduct disorder. These are behaviors which show a lack of care for others as well as poor emotional regulation. Now, all of these that we're talking about now are mental health disorders. They have diagnoses. Okay. Oppositional defiant disorder, commonly known as ODD. It's a behavioral disorder in which children ignore authority and rules and face them with anger and hostile behaviors. So they're just going to be disobedient and they're going to be angry and hostile about it. Substance misuse. This is the dependence on substances to cope and manage negative feelings or situations. Bipolar disorder, a mood disorder characterized by severe mood swings between mania and depression. And narcissistic personality disorder, personality disorder marked by a sense of superiority, entitlement, and a lack of empathy. You all, it's very, very important that we're nipping the antisocial behavior when we first see it and start working on how to make the change. Okay. So the impacts of antisocial behavior are many. Okay. It is very difficult for everyone involved. Those exhibiting these behaviors tend to have a hard time keeping relationships and wind up feeling isolated and alone. This can further drive them to be destructive. Those on the receiving end of the antisocial behaviors are also greatly impacted. And those are negative impactments, right? They may develop anxiety or PTSD for prolonged exposure to these behaviors, or they may develop feelings of depression if the behaviors are never discussed, repaired, and corrected moving forward. So usually when we have a child or an adult with antisocial behavior, then these are the things that can happen. We have substance misuse, the depression, premature death, incarceration, injuring or killing someone, relationship problems, poor work of academic performance, and desensitization to violence or malice. So, how do we proactively reduce antisocial behavior? Now, the responses are going to vary completely from each individual person because every person is totally different and they have different reasons for displaying the behavior that they're displaying. For instance, you may respond differently to a child displaying antisocial behavior than you would an adult, or if you're the victim or target of such a behavior. So when we're seeing the antisocial behavior in our children, we have to do several things, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes to make sure that we're nipping some of this behavior in the bud. So the first thing we want to do when reducing antisocial behavior in children would be to seek treatment. Okay. Take your child to see a counselor. You can start there and see how that goes. If that counselor says, hey, we need to do some testing and we may need to do medication, then that may be an option. The next thing you want to do is alert the teachers or authority figures that your children are going to come in contact with so that they will know that the behavior that they're seeing is a diagnosed behavior and that is antisocial, that the child is just not being rude on purpose, but this is a part of their behavior and their character, and that we're working on it. Now, when you tell them that you're working on it, you have to let them know what plan you all have in place for your child. So if they're being defiant, or let's say they yell, and you would tell that authority figure, my child has a tendency of yelling. When he or she yells, this is how you respond to him or her so that we can calm them down and it does not escalate. Okay. So you're going to alert the teachers and let them know what works and what does not work for your child. Remember, you're going to be teams. Every adult that works with your child, you will become a part of your village, and you all will work as a team to make sure that your child is successful. You're going to monitor their actions and their whereabouts. So you're going to help create structure for your child. So routine gives your children something to look forward to, and it keeps their environment predictable. You're always going to know where they are, and you're going to always know how they're behaving so that you can correct the behavior when you hear about it. You will discuss the impact of their behavior with them. So that's a long discussion that you'll have. And it's not, we're going to fuss about it, or I'm going to yell, or I'm going to discipline them on it. We are going to communicate. We will have a discussion. We'll ask questions. For instance, if your child is bullying another child at school, of course, the teacher is going to alert you, and we're going to call your child Johnny today, all right? So the teacher alerted you that Johnny was bullying Sheila today at school. So you'll have a discussion with Johnny when you get home, asking them different questions like, one, how do you think Sheila felt when you said the bad things that you said to her? What would you do in that situation? And see what answers you get from your child. Why do you think that you were bullying Sheila? What made you bully Sheila today? And see what your answer is. Because based on those answers, there may be something that we need to do different at home to get Johnny's day started in a better direction. You're going to always remain patient and calm, right? Because your child feeds off of your energy. And I can rephrase it. People feed off of other people's energy. Okay. So if you go into a situation and you're yelling and you're mad and you're angry and you become unglued, then your child is going to feed off that same energy. They will yell back because they think they need to be heard. They will mimic your behavior. So if you're patient and calm, then hopefully the child will remain patient and calm. Attempt to empathize with them. Now, in empathy, we're not saying that what they're doing is correct or right, but based on their answers when you ask them questions, you can tell them that you understand that they did why they did what they did, or why they're um, showing those types of behaviors. You understand it, but then you're going to turn around and ask them, well, how can we make it better, or how can we get a better result than bullying? Then you will determine the necessary discipline. Okay. You're going to always consider all the variables and what an appropriate consequence should be. Remember, we talked about positive consequences and negative consequences. You'll work with the village, which I call your therapist or other parents or mentors or teachers, and they can give you different strategies that work, right? Because usually, if you're dealing with an adult that's working with a bunch of children at the same time, they're able to see several different techniques and see the outcome of those techniques. They can just be a treasure chest of ideas of what you can do that would help. Remember, all the children are not the same, and so they're all going to respond differently to different interventions. Then the other thing is consider therapy for yourself. Now, why would we do that? We do that because Whenever we're dealing with someone with antisocial behaviors or mental health disorders, we as caretakers or family members, we have to have support. It's very challenging to raise a child or live with someone that has mental health illnesses or have different characteristics that are different than the norm. So we need a support system ourselves. So what do we do when we're reducing antisocial behavior in adults? We're going to encourage them to seek treatment. They have to get treated for it because being the victim of an antisocial behavior can be traumatizing and frightening. We have to learn to establish boundaries and expectations of how you're going to be treated as an adult by another adult and by your child. Many with antisocial behaviors are not aware of their impact on others. So making it clear that these behaviors are not acceptable is a good first step to making sure that we're reducing the antisocial behavior. We're going to maintain distance when possible. So when we're seeing that the antisocial behavior in adult, which may be yelling, it may be cursing, it may be violence, we're going to get away, move into a safe environment, alert relevant authorities when necessary. So we're not going to enable our adult antisocial behavior people. We're going to make sure that they remain safe and that the community is safe. So if we have to call the authorities to come, then that's just what we're going to have to do. But let me give you a tip, okay? When you're calling the authorities on anyone with a mental health illness, the first thing you need to do is let the dispatcher know that I'm calling about my child, my loved one that has a mental health illness. They have a diagnosis. And this is what they're doing. They're here with me. And if they're a threat, you need to let them know that they're a threat. But if they're not a threat as far as harming someone, then make sure to let them know, let the authorities know, and let them know that you only need help in resolving an issue or you need that person needs to be removed temporarily. Okay. There's another webinar about crisis planning. So you may want to go online and look it up on the Family Helping Families website. That's there. Okay. And so when you have a mental health client that's in your home or a relative, then you'll have a crisis plan. So then you can let the police or the authorities know exactly where that person needs to be taken to so that we can calm the situation down. And the next thing we need to know when you need to end a relationship. Just because you're in a relationship with someone with antisocial behavior doesn't mean that you have to remain in it if they're not doing what they need to do to have different behavior. So we also want them to engage in individual therapy. They'll go to get therapy so that they'll understand boundaries. They'll find out different ways to help cope with this disorder. Okay. They'll learn different techniques as well. They can join a support group. Now, this is just not for the adult with the antisocial behavior, it could be for their loved one as well. And again, we do not want to enable the behavior. Do not make excuses for the behaviors or allow things to just slide. It'll only hurt you and them. Okay. If behaviors continue and you feel harassed, get other people involved to ensure that you're safe and that you are never harmed. And again, call local authorities whenever necessary. So let's talk about treating antisocial behavior. Addressing antisocial behavior and getting treatment for antisocial personality disorder will be a highly individualized process because no one walks through the swamp the same way. Treating antisocial behaviors alone can be challenging as many of the people are very resistant to professional treatment. Because most people don't want to go to a therapist, so they don't want to go to a psychologist, right? Therapy in general is a great way to modify behaviors and learn consequences by showing and discussing the outcomes of their behavior. It's important to discuss this with your village, your care team. So, what are some treatments? We use several treatments. So, one of them is CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. Mm. It helps to challenge thought processes and patterns to learn how you respond differently to your thoughts. So um if you get upset, we'll talk you through why do you get upset? What do you do when you get upset? Does it hurt other people? If it does, how do you feel when that person is hurt? Okay, now how do we go back and fix all of this? So it's just changing the thought process for the patterns. Then dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, focuses on accepting their thoughts and finding a way to regulate their own emotions to tolerate the distressing feeling. Then family therapy, that's everyone in your family has a chance to share their piece of what's actually happening. And hopefully the antisocial adult can hear it and then make changes because they're hearing how it affects their family members and what the results may be. Group therapy is very good because it gives people a chance to be around other people who have some of the same behaviors. You get a chance to learn from them. It also reduces the stigma that may be internalized with having antisocial behavior. And of course, medication. It can be very helpful for mood stabilization. It also may help to treat underlying or co-occurring mental health issues. So usually we put medication on the very last. We try everything else, everything that's the least invasive treatment. And then when those things don't work, then we may need medication. So now we're going to talk about managing antisocial behavior in children. So now it's time for the chat. I know everybody's so excited. I need you to list one of the before we go into the store rules in the chat. Now, I know most of you have heard this. Your parents say, before we go into the school, then before we go into the store, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It may be 10 things, but I know some of you all have at least one rule that an adult told you before you go into the store. And I should see some smiles. I should hear some smiles when I hear these results. It should bring back some memories.
Don't touch anything. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask me for nothing. Don't ask for anything. Don't touch anything. Look with your eyes and not with your
With your
hands.
hands.
Don't talk to strangers. Use the restroom. Don't ask for anything. Be on your best behavior. Don't ask for nothing because you don't have any money.
Yes, yes, and yes. See, you all knew these answers. We all grew up with the same parents, right? So, guess what, you guys? Before we go into the store rules, or before we go into your auntie's house, or wherever we're going, we all had these rules, right? This is how you behave. So, they were established and enforced behavior codes that clearly communicated behavior standards and expectations. I'll repeat that again and then I'll say it another way. These rules were established and enforced. Okay. It was a behavior code that clearly communicated behavior standards and expectations. Now, I'll say it like my mom said it. I'm telling you what to do, and you better not break these rules, or there are going to be some consequences. right? And I'm sure you all had some type of sentence that followed, okay?
And I
Now
have
remember
another
the
one, stay by my
okay,
side.
stay by my side. Yes, don't let go of this boogie. So very good. Now I'm going to give all of you all an A for that one, okay? So we'll get back to that answer, right? But it's very important. That was a good icebreaker for us, right? So we're going to create a positive school and home climate. We're going to provide social skills training. So some of our people, our children, our kids, if you're professionals in the school system, we still call them our kids and our children. They may not have learned any social skills at home, or maybe they did and they need to be reinforced at school. This is why it's very important to talk to our parents, and parents, it's very important why we talk to the teachers so that they will know how you run your household. Because children are very manipulative and they will act like they've never heard any of these rules before in their life, right? But when we have a relationship with our parents, we'll know, oh, this parent has rules. They make sure that their kids are up on time and that they do their homework and A, B, C, D, and E. So then when the child comes in and gives you some unreasonable answer about why they didn't do their homework, you can respond, now that's not true because I know your mother or your father or your guardian. Make sure that you do your homework. You must did not tell them about it. So it's just understanding where your children are coming from. We're going to reward positive behavior. Remember, we talked about positive and negative consequences, but we want to be more on the positive consequence side, right? So instead of punishing bad behavior, we want to create guidelines that reward our children for behaving appropriately. So we try to reward them when we call it catch them being good. Catch your child doing good and reward them for that behavior. You'll use calming techniques. So parents, staff, teachers, you can use calming techniques like deep breathing, counting, taking a break, or using a quiet voice to diffuse tension. Remember earlier we talked about just staying calm in the situation so that we want them to feed off our good energy and not our bad energy. Involve others. Where's the village? Every time you hear me speak, we're going to talk about the village. Where's the village? So we have to have other adults that can help us with our children. They create a positive climate. They can decrease the antisocial behavior. They have programs or they have different skills or resources that can help our children. Even when our kids are having an episode of antisocial behavior or an episode of just a bad character, then we can involve the auntie and the uncle or other people in our village to say, hey, maybe you need to go see Uncle John today and you all can do something different. Maybe moving your child out of bad disposition into a better thought process. But we always want to have other people in our circle, our villagers, that can always help us with our children. Now, research says that teenagers who take part in arts and cultural activities such as dance, drama, martial art, reading, and going to concerts are less likely to engage in antisocial and criminal behavior for up to 2 years longer. So after they stop participating, this still has a positive effect on them up to 2 years. This was according to a study by UCL and the University of Florida researchers. Okay. So we want to get our children involved in as much as they possibly can. There are all types of free activities in the community. Your Boys and Girls Club, families up in families, they're always doing things like um, a night at the park or a night at the movies in the park, all types of things. So I always go to that website and look and see what type of activities they have for our children. We're going to move away from power struggles with our children, right? If they're in a bad mood and you're in a bad mood and you're trying to figure out who's in charge, it's pointless, especially with a child with antisocial behavior. It's just absolutely pointless, right? You're going to do some other things like building in your relationship. You're going to compact the distractions with questions, which will be like, well, why? What would you like to do different and why? Or how can we move past this situation, right? You're going to have to engage your children in some deep thinking exercises so that they learn to communicate. Okay. Create routine. And this is the create the routines is very helpful because it makes your children feel very secure. Now, if we go back to the before we go into the store rules, you guys, that was a routine. So you know it, right? You know exactly what your parents told you not to do. Because we're like 20, 30, 40, some of us 50 years after the fact, and we still can repeat what they said because it was a routine. You know, when you go in the store, you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E, period. End of the discussion, right? The expectations were already there. I will share with you an example of I have a godson that was diagnosed with autism when he was little. We knew then as a village that we had to do some things different. So we created a lot of routines for him. And they were basic routines like when you enter a room, what do you do? So he knew go in, make eye contact with the person, take their hand, tell them your name, ask them their name, and then allow them to say something else, respond to that question, and then you can ask your parent, can you be dismissed to read? Because he always had a book with him. So we started the routine of this is how you present yourself in public to people. And so he learned that routine, right? And then we created another routine. This is how you go when you go to school. This is how you behave at school. So everything was a routine until it became normal, right? And he could do it without thinking about it. And that really helped. It stopped him from being very antisocial because with that diagnosis, he would be reclusive. He would sit in the corner, read only, not talk to people, didn't want to touch them, the whole nine. So we created routines to put him in those situations so that he would know how to respond and he felt comfortable in those situations. So you're going to build relationships with understanding. Like, I understand that this is a problem for you, or you have issues with this, or this may be difficult for you, but I need you to do A, B, and C, or you can ask the question, if you cannot do what I ask you to do, what can you do instead that will be acceptable? Okay. That goes right into the next one, combat distractions with questions. Because although they may be antisocial, it does not mean that they don't think. Okay. So we have to tap into the thought process and start doing that therapy on our own with our children because that's what you're doing when you're asking the questions and you're getting an understanding and you all are coming up with positive solutions that will work. So this brings our presentation to an end. Do you all have any questions or comments?
Everybody do have control to your mic if you have any questions or comments that you would like to ask. Okay.
Okay. So remember that antisocial behavior can be adjusted with communication, boundaries, and guidance. The most unfortunate thing to be done is to ignore the antisocial behavior and to allow it to exist. Nothing good ever comes from being silent. Thank you all for coming. If you would like to contact me, I can be contacted at any of the numbers on the next slide or the address. I look forward to seeing you all again at the next webinar. Make sure to stay on because you're going to have Miss April coming up next with some information, and you all also will have your survey that's going to be sent to you. Thank you.
Well, I do have some comments.
Okay.
The first one is, this was awesome and great job, great presentation, great information.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Katrina. We appreciated it. Very excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
At this time, we're going to have a few words from Miss April Hampton. We're very blessed today to have her with us because it's important that we all go deeper. It's good to get information, but it's exceptional when we can actually go to a place and sometimes anyway express our thoughts about what families need to help themselves and to help their children with reference to special needs, children with special needs, individuals with special needs. So Ms. April Hampton is very versed in this type of work, and she's highly involved in it. So we appreciate your staying tuned to see what she has to say. It will be worth it. Thank you. Miss April.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for that introduction, Ms. Pat. So I am April Hampton, and I am Region 2 LACAN leader. And LACAN is Louisiana Council's Advocacy Network. And so what we do is we link lawmakers, individuals with disabilities, and family members to make positive change in systems serving people with disabilities. We also advocate for policies and systems that support inclusion everywhere people work, live, play, learn, and grow. We support systems that help children and adults with disabilities to live in their own homes and to be fully included and participating members of their communities. As a LACAN leader, we provide connections with the regional team of advocates, providing information on proposed policy changes and how those changes may affect you and others. We provide training and skills to effectively advocate for system change and support you in linking with policymakers. So as a LACAN member, what we do is LACAN members will participate in various advocacy activities throughout the year. So some of those opportunities are, we have what we do every year is legislative roundtable, where the community gets together, whether it's virtual or in person, to meet with the legislators to discuss the agenda that was chosen for that particular legislative session. We also do legislative visits where if a member wants to address a certain issue with the legislators, we try to schedule an appointment, whether it's in person or virtual, to meet with that legislator so that individual can discuss their concerns. We also have what we do, it's called Yellow Shirt Day. And those are days where we go to the Capitol with some LACAN members and other community members to give testimony or to be a presence there to let them know that there's some concerns with those agenda items that affect the individuals with disabilities. And then we also do information and action alerts, and you get those once you sign up as a LACAN member. So whenever there is something going on or some information that needs to be given to the community, It is sent to your email, or if you are on my Facebook page or what have you, I also send that information out so you can be well informed, and that gives you the opportunity to either call or email your policymaker to let them know what your opinions, your feelings are on whatever that particular action alert is. And those are some of the things that you do as a LACAN leader. And some benefits to the membership is that you have connections. You get that information, you get training, and you also get support. And so I want to discuss a little bit about what our legislative agenda was for this session, which was one of the agenda items was recurrent funding for the Families Helping Family Center. The other one was eliminating the Family Flex Fund. And the last one was trying to get the direct service night rate increase. And so in the beginning, none of our agenda items were put into the budget. So now we have 2 of those 3, and the only one that's not put back into the budget was the Family Flex funds. And I also want to share with you a little bit on how important it is to give testimony and to show up at the Capitol, because those yellow shirts represent something to the legislators. So we're very well known by them. I'll give you an example. We had an alert that went out, and when I tell you the legislators got a lot of response on that particular alert, and that made a great difference in how they viewed that particular bill that they were trying to pass. So it's very important, you know, to be a voice in the community, especially, you know, when it has a direct effect on you or your family members. So I'm going to end with that. But if you,
Miss April?
yes.
Miss April, 1 second. Could you explain to the listeners the Family Flex Fund? What does that mean for the average person on average kind of day-to-day basis?
Okay, so the Family Flex Fund is a fund that certain individuals receive, and it's like $258 a month, which is not a whole lot. But what you can use for that fund is, say for instance, if you have to take your family member you know, to appointments, whether it's in town, out of town, that could help with gas. If you're having some struggles with utilities, that can also help with utilities. If your loved one needs, say, you know, adult Pampers or what have you, you can use that for that. So though it's not a whole lot, it does help many people. And the issue with that Family Flex Fund, why we wanted to get that wait list eliminated, is because they have had people that's been on that list for 5 years. And the age out is 18. So if you've been on there, you know, and your kid is close to, or they're gonna age out, then you'll never, you know, receive those funds. So there's many things that you can do for it. And I've actually talked to individuals who have said how much that Family Flex Fund helped.
Well, we thank you so much. And again, we encourage you to become a part of LACAN. There's no charge for that. And help April and others in their efforts to get what families need for their families, for their children with disabilities. We're so appreciative of the work that she does. It's very important and critical to the lives of families, making them whole, healthy, and able to deal better with challenges in life. So we thank you so much, Ms. Hampton, April.
You're welcome. And I'm putting in the where you can join LACAN. I'm going to put that in the chat. And like Ms. Pat said, there's no dues or fees for it. And it keeps you in the loop as to what's going on in the community. So it's, you know, very important. And it doesn't take very long. Once you sign up, you'll start getting those alerts and like I said, what's going on in the community.
All right, then, there we have it. So we're looking for everybody to join LACAN. That would be our best bet. We want to remind you to look at our website at Family Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge, to go to our Facebook page to get conference call information about webinars, future webinars, and in-person training. Don't forget the survey that you're to take in a moment. It only takes a few seconds, but it gives us an idea of, you know, what works well with the presentation and what we could brush up on. So your feedback is important. Thank you for attending today's event, and it's been our honor to have you present. Also, a certificate of attendance will be granted to all those who took part today. Thank you so much. We hope to see you at our next training. Please, as I mentioned, visit those sites, Facebook, Instagram, email, and the website. Have a great day. God bless. Bye-bye.